In today's video, we're going to talk about an issue that a viewer of the channel pointed out. Now, before we jump in, I just want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help the channel grow and get this content out to other people. Right now, we're a little over 700 people, and we're trying to get to monetization at 1,000. So I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like and subscribe and help the channel grow. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. So here's the issue. So if we hit add new item, let's go ahead and do a test weekly event. And I went ahead and filled out the rest of this. The key thing is that we've got a start date that is before daylight savings time in November. And we're saying that it's going to repeat twice, and it's going to repeat on a weekly basis. So let's go ahead and save this and let our automation run, and then we'll see the error that happens. All right, so what we can see here is I created this event here. This is the start one here, and I set it for 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. Now, when we move to the next week, we can see that we're now in daylight savings time, and the hour has shifted an hour earlier. And it's actually on the wrong day because of that. And it's very obvious and stands out when you see it like this, that there's a problem here. And the problem is whenever you have daylight savings time, the way the Power Automate processes things using UTC can throw a wrench into doing anything with dates. It's kind of annoying how Power Automate doesn't account for it, but I do understand why it is that way. So you always have to kind of build around daylight savings time when you're building these things. But we can see that everything's fine here, but it's just moving everything that 1 hour offset. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to fix for this particular issue here. And there's a couple different ways you could do this. I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest way to do this, and it's the most adjustable, so it can be adjusted to fit a lot of different scenarios. So if you're in, say, the West Coast or the East Coast or Pacific, this scenario will allow you to account for pretty much anywhere in the world that has this particular issue. So the first thing we need to do is add a column. So let's go ahead and add a choice column here, and we'll hit next. And we're going to call this the time zone. So what we need the user to do is tell us what time zone they're in. It'll be a choice column. And then we'll go ahead and put in Pacific Standard Time. And it's got to be the Windows version of this. You got to make sure that you type these things in there correctly. So we'll say Central Standard Time. And obviously it's got to be spelled correctly. And then we'll go ahead and put in Eastern Standard Time. Now, if you're in a different area, maybe you're in some other country, or maybe you're in Pacific Standard Time, or you're someplace else, all you have to do is make sure that you put all of the available options in here, and then our flow will take, regardless where you are, as long as you select the right time zone, that the flow will execute correctly. Now, the other thing you want to do is determine if you want this to be a mandatory field or not. It's a lot easier from the execution if you just make this a mandatory field. Now, if the bulk of the people are in a specific time zone, you can just set a specific area. And we're going to have Eastern Standard Time. So I'm going to go ahead and fix the spelling of Eastern Standard Time here, because that will cause a problem if we put in the incorrect spelling. So we'll have Eastern Standard Time. And the other thing we want to take a look at is making it a required field. So we'll go ahead and come down here and require that this field have information. Again, that just makes things a little bit easier for our flow. So let's go ahead and hit save here. And then I like to do is just change the name here. So let's go ahead and change this quick. And there we go. And that's if I ever put this into a Power App that I don't have the spaces, so it's not going to have all the special characters from that space. So I always start off with none, but then I do want to make it readable for the person that's going into the SharePoint portal to actually work with this. Now let's go ahead and just delete these. We don't need those anymore, so they don't mess us up for the future. And let's go to our Power Automate, and we're going to make some changes in our Power Automate that will allow us to determine this information correctly. All right, so now this is the flow that we created, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this so you don't have to go watch that entire video to see this process. All we've done is when an item is created, we're just going to run this flow. That's all this is doing. There's nothing special or additional on this. We can go ahead and hit show all, and you can see there's nothing really different here. And then we've got our initialize the variable. Now this is going to be our start loop, and we want to start this at 0. And then inside the loop, we're going to go ahead and increase this by 1 for each of the instances that are being set in there. And if we come over here, we can take a look and expand this. We've got two conditions. We've got our true and our false. And for this, we can see that recurring is equal to true. Well, that's our true side. And if it's not, then we're just terminating. So we've got a termination on this side. And then on the left side for the true, we've got a do until. And we're going to increment our variable. So our start loop that we created up here, we're going to increase that by 1 for each time that it's going through. And then we're going to add to our start time here. So we're going to hit add to time, and we're going to choose our start, whatever we set in there. And this is kind of what we're going to adjust, is we're going to add some additional steps in here. And then we've got our start loop, and then our period that we set is whether it was a day, a week, a year. That's going to be what is in here. And that's why you can't use quarter, because it's not one of the options. Our time unit is pretty specific on what is required. If we go ahead and close this off here, these are the options that we've got. We've got day, hour, minute, month, second, and week. And obviously our custom value is we want to pick from our dynamic content here, and we're taking our what we set inside of there. So our recurring period value. And that's how we set this up. And then we've got the same thing for our end. It's the exact same setup here. And then all we're doing is creating each of those events. So we basically added all the information that's in here. We'll adjust this also with our new times as we're going through here. Now let's go back up here. Now what we need to do is we need another variable. So let's go up here, and we're going to initialize a variable. So we'll find variable and initialize a variable. And for this one, we're going to just call it TZ for time zone. Again, it's just going to be a string option here. And let's go ahead and find our time zone option here. So time zone value. And let's go ahead and change the name here. So we'll say our time zone. All right, so then we've got our start loop and we've got our time zone. Now what we have to do is adjust our do until here. And we're going to go ahead and add a compose. So let's go ahead and find our compose option here. And let's go ahead and we're going to do an expression. So let's go ahead and type in this expression box here. What we need to do is convert our time zone. So let's go ahead and convert time zone. And we want to choose our trigger output. And then we have to add this in here. And then we want to find from our body the start. And I think I forgot to put our little single quotes. All right, so that's looking good. And then we'll add, we want to do UTC. And we want to base it on our variables, and specifically the TZ that we created. So that's what we're going to do for our start local time, is convert time zone, trigger output, our start from our body, UTC, and based on the variable that we created. So if we selected Eastern Standard Time, for example, or Pacific Standard Time, that's what we want to use to convert the time zone. All right, let's go ahead and copy this. And all right, let's go ahead and add. Oh, I see what we forgot. We forgot to close out the parentheses here. All right, now let's hit add. There we go. And what we need to do is change the name of this. So we'll go ahead and call this start local. And then we'll go ahead and add another one in here. And this will be our end local. So we'll go ahead and call this end local. And then for our expression, we'll go ahead and paste this in there. And instead of start, it's going to be our end. And hit add. Oh, got to again close out our parentheses here and hit add. All right, so now we've got our compose end local and our compose start local. And now what we need to do is adjust our add to time start to use that. So instead of using our start, we're going to use the compose that we just created for our start. So it'll be our compose start local output. And then for our end time, it's going to be the same. So it's going to be our dynamic content for our end local output. All right, that's looking better. Now what we need to do is another compose. So let's go ahead and find a compose here. All of this for a daylight savings time issue. All right, our expression is going to be convert time zone, and it'll be from our body, but this time it's going to be from our add to time start. So let's go ahead and find add to time, and let me see if I can see this here. Make sure we get this right. Yep, so right there, add to time start, and then we'll add our variables again. And this will be, again, TZ. and it'll be our UTC. All right, let's take a look at that. So we got convert time zone body, add to time start, variables, TZ and UTC. All right, let's go ahead and add, actually let's copy this because we're gonna need this again. And let's go ahead and compose this name as our new start to make it obvious what we're looking at here. All right, so let's add another compose. And this will be our new end. And then our expression, we'll go ahead and paste that in. And this one should just be end, yep. And there we go, hit add. Oh, I can see the issue again, we forgot our, there we go. Now we can hit add. Yep, there we go. Let's check this one again. Yeah, it didn't save. So let's go ahead and put the expression in here again. And there we go. And hit add. All right, so now we're good. And then all we have to do is change our create item here. So instead of our start from the calculated time, we're going to find our new start. So we're going to find new start output. And then we're going to find our new end. Here we go. All right, everything's looking good there. So let's go ahead and save this. Looks ready to go. So let's go back to our SharePoint portal and give this a whirl. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new item. All right, so we'll say this is a weekly test again. New flow. And our start date will be last week again. All right, so I've gone ahead and filled this out here. And again, pretty much the exact same, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, so it just kind of stands out when there's a problem. And it's a recurring event at week. So let's go ahead and save and see what happens with that flow. All right, so here we have our flow, and we can see the time is now the same, and it is the next week. So everything is working as expected with the revision that we put into this flow. Now, to be helpful, this is a link I'm going to put in the description of this video. It has all the time zones, so you could just actually just copy all of these if you really wanted to. But my guess is that you're going to want to tailor this to your usage and how you're going to set it up for your use case, because not everybody has an organization that needs all of these different time zones, because there's quite a lot of time zones you can choose from, as you can see here. That's why I focused on the 3 primaries for the United States, which the bulk of my subscribers and viewers seem to be in the United States. But I will put this link in the description, so if you're looking for your area and you want to make sure that all of your time zones are properly inputted in there, you can use this as a reference point for using the correct wording that Microsoft is expecting in order for that flow to work correctly. Hope you found this content helpful. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you find this information helpful. It really does help the channel grow. Until next time.